Hi everyone, welcome to the Jayda InStitches show. This is our little gnome. We first designed and made him back in 2014, and we've had a written pattern for him in our Etsy shop ever since. Well, a recent poll of our channel members suggested that there was a lot of interest in making a new Amigurumi project as we headed into the fall/holiday season. So since we've done a lot of Amigurumi and little toy tutorials here on the show over the last decade, we thought it would be fun to celebrate all that by creating a tutorial for our little gnome. Another reason this is a good time of year to do a tutorial on our little gnome is that by changing his color, you can get Santa or a little elf too. In today's tutorial, we are going to use a whole bunch of techniques. We'll be working in the round, which is sort of a continuous spiraling crochet technique. We're going to be changing colors, switching between colors mid-row. We're going to be making separate and adding on afterwards little tiny details. And of course, we're also going to be giving you some good techniques on stuffing. Today's tutorial assumes that you've probably made a toy or two before. And if you haven't, I don't want you to be scared off from trying our little gnome. But if you want to start with something that has maybe fewer parts, we've also linked a couple of our other toy tutorials in the description box down below that are a nice start if you're new to the whole world of Amigurumi. Over the years, I've made this little gnome in different colors, and different themes, depending on the time of year or maybe the holiday that was coming up. Every time I make him, I want to make another one. I think this might be my favorite Amigurumi design that we've come up with so far. And since we're taking the opportunity to make a tutorial for him this week, we are also taking the opportunity to refresh our Etsy pattern, and we've included some extras like new photographs and some little details about, for example, how to make Merlin here. So, whether you're making a lawn gnome or Santa or one of his elves, let's grab our hooks, grab our yarn, we'll head on over to the craft table, and we will stitch up our little gnome pattern together. In order to make our little gnomes, we are using a size 4 medium weight yarn. I'm using acrylic, but you could use wool, cotton, blends. Fiber isn't terribly important for this little toy project. However, let's talk amounts. You want around 15 yards for his hat color, 15 yards for his tunic color. So I'm using red today. That's 30 yards in total for my red because I'm making Santa. You want around 9 yards of white. That's for his hair and his beard. And around 3 to 5 yards of a flesh tone color. You also want another yard of black, a yard of yellow, and maybe a yard of more red or pink for the little accents we're going to give him. You want 2 little plastic beads for his eyes and a needle and thread to sew them on with. You also want a yarn needle, a pair of scissors, and the hook we're using is a size 4 millimeter, also known as a G or a 6 in the US. Now some G6 hooks are also 4.25 millimeters. It's a negligible amount of difference in size, so either of those hooks would be just fine. And lastly, we want some stuffing. You can use polyester or pillow fiber fill or just some scrap yarn or scrap fabric. These guys don't require a lot of stuffing, so I'm just going to use some scrap yarn for the stuffing today. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. Please visit our shop and purchase a pattern. It helps support our show, and we'll put a link to our shop in the description box down below. Our little gnome is worked from the top of his hat all the way down to his bottom in one go. We are working in the round, which means we do not join our rows with a slip stitch. We work directly into the first stitch of the previous row to keep going in a continuous round. So no joining of rows unless directed. We will be doing some color changes. There's a little bit of color changing and dropping of yarn as we work through the hair and face section. And his beard and belt and mouth are added separately. So those are added at the end. Also, his little bottom piece is worked separately too. So let's grab our hat color and get started. Our little hat is 12 rows in total. We are working in the round. We are increasing our stitch count every other row. We start very, very small and we gradually get larger. Please remember that you can pause the video at any time if you need to catch up. And here we go. We're going to begin with a cinch circle. Once you've made your circle and chained 1 to secure it, we are working over top of our little short tail. We want to work 4 single crochet into that cinch circle. Once you have 4 single crochet worked into that cinch circle, grab the short tail, cinch it up nice and tight. Don't worry about working over top of your tail. You can just let it hang down below. You will have what looks like a half circle. So this is the very tight top that we're starting with. Find the first stitch that you made, this little guy over here, stick your hook into it, because we are working directly into the next stitch to work a continuous round. We are not joining with a slip stitch. We are going to work a single crochet into each of those 4 stitches. So I'm going to get that little short tail out of the way. So once you get that first single crochet made, I find it helpful to kind of push the bit of the first row stitches outwards so that I can see the next stitches going around in a circle. So that's the first single crochet, and now we're going to work a single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches, bending it into a little tiny peak each time. This is the tightest part of the little project, so it's nice to get it over and done with right up front. All right, that is row 2 complete. So we began with 4 single crochet. We've single crocheted once into each of them. That's 4 stitches still going in the round. It's very small and tight. Don't worry if it looks a little complicated right now, because now we're going to start to get larger. Into the next stitch, so here's the last one I worked, here's the next stitch, we're going to start to increase. 2 single crochet into that next stitch. Single crochet once into the next stitch. So I like to get it up on my hook first before I worry about the single crochet. Find the next stitch, 2 single crochet into the next stitch. This is stitch number 3. And into the last stitch, we're going to single crochet once. So now we are up to 6 single crochet. That is the end of row 3. For row 4, we're going to single crochet into each of those 6 stitches. So it might help to just count to 6 in your head. All right, that is the end of row 4. That is 6 stitches all the way around. I'm just going to use this opportunity to stick that little tail up into the top of my hat. If you've got too much tail and it's in the way, then just allow it to keep dangling. Now we've got what looks like the very top of a little hat started. So that's end of row 4, that's 6 stitches. Going forward, you might find it helpful to use a stitch marker to mark the first stitch of every row. That way, when you're busy doing repeats or you're counting, if you lose track, you know where your first stitch is. Now, I tend to count in my head, so that's why you don't see me using a stitch marker very often, but it is really helpful if you get interrupted, if you have trouble focusing, or if you need to put your yarn or your project down for a little while. You'll know where that first stitch of every row is because you're going to mark it with a stitch marker. Then when you get back around to it, take the stitch marker out, start the next row, put the stitch marker back on the first stitch of that row, and so on. So that's how you would use a stitch marker to keep track of where you are in the round. Once again, that's the end of row 4, that's 6 stitches, and let's continue. Into the next stitch, we're going to work 2 single crochet. From here on out, your base multiplier is sets of 3. So that's 2 single crochet into the first stitch, single crochet once into the next stitch, and then we're going to repeat that little multiplier twice more. 2 single crochet into the next stitch. It's gradually getting larger, so it won't be as difficult to hang on to here. Single crochet once into the next stitch, and 2 single crochet into the next stitch. This is the last set of 3. Single crochet once into the very last stitch of the row. So we've gone from 6 stitches to 9. We are now at 9 single crochet. That is the end of row 5. For row 6, we are going to single crochet in each stitch around. So if you're using a stitch marker, it should be right here. And when you work into this stitch, you're going to move your stitch marker to the next new first stitch of the row. Or if you're counting, just count 9 in your head. Single crochet once into each of the next 9 stitches. That's 9 stitches. That's the end of row 6. Row 7, we're increasing again. Remember, it's sets of 3, so you're going to repeat the little increased pattern 3 times all the way around. If you're moving your stitch marker should be right here, and then you're going to move it again to the next first stitch of the row. 2 single crochet into the first stitch, single crochet once into each of the next 2 stitches, 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet, 1 single crochet, and 1 more. 2 single crochet into the next stitch, single crochet once into each of the next 2. So this is how the little multiplier works. It will always be done 3 times. So 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1. That was row 7. For row 8, we're just going to single crochet in each stitch all the way around. We are up to 12 stitches at this point, so you can also just count to 12 in your head. At the end of row 8, you'll have 12 stitches still. You've definitely got a little tiny gnome hat happening here. We are still increasing. For row 9, we are going to work 2 single crochet into the first stitch of the row, and 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. And that little repeater is done 3 times in total. 2 single crochet into the first stitch of the set, single crochet once into each of the next 3 stitches, 2 single crochet, 1, 1, and 1. That was row 9. We are now up to 15 stitches. For row 10, you are going to single crochet in each stitch around, or count to 15 in your head. At the end of row 10, we have 15 stitches. We are going to continue increasing now. Row 11, we begin with 2 single crochet in the first stitch, and a single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. We now want to repeat that twice more. 2 single crochet, 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. Two single crochet, 1 single crochet into the remaining 4 stitches of the row. We are now up to 18 stitches, and for row 12, the last little row of the hat, we are going to single crochet in each stitch all the way around, or count to 18. And there is our little gnome hat. We are finished with this part of our little gnome, so we are going to slip stitch into the next stitch and fasten off. So that's the only slip stitch so far in the pattern. You can leave a little tail. Make sure it's nice and tight, and you can just tuck that into the hat. So you don't really have to weave in very many tails in this little project. Next, we want to get both our white yarn, the hair beard color that you're using, and your skin tone color. We're going to begin with our hair color. I'm using white. We're going to start with a slip knot on our hook. We're going to join our new color with a single crochet in the same place that we fastened off. So if you pull up on that little tail, you can see that little space there underneath the knot. That's where we're going to join our yarn. So slip your hook in there, yarn over, and join with a single crochet. Again, you don't have to worry about working over top of your tails. You can if you want to. I might in this case, just to kind of keep things simple. But you can also just tuck it to the inside of your hat. Into the same place that you just joined your yarn, you're going to work another single crochet. So that's 2 single crochet to begin row 13. Now we're going to single crochet once into each of the next 5 stitches. And we are doing a little repeater. We're going to do that twice more. So 2 single crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into each of the next 5. And once more to finish off row 13, 2 single crochet into the next stitch, 1 single crochet into each of the next 5. That brings us right back to the beginning, and we are not joining with a slip knot because we are continuing to work in the round. So we've begun the little hair part of our pattern. It is worked directly onto the hat. You will have 21 single crochet at the end of row 13, and row 14 is where things start to get interesting. To begin row 14, we are going to single crochet into each of the next 7 stitches. Pull up on that loop, grab your skin tone, make a slip knot, remove it from your hook temporarily. We're going to put our hooks back into the white yarn or the hair color yarn. You're going to slip that new color, your skin tone, onto your hook. You're going to treat both of these loops as one, and you are going to single crochet into the next stitch using the skin tone color. Now, I like to carry the color, so I'm going to just lay the white color, the color I'm not using, on top of my stitches. I'm going to work over top of it, so when I want to switch back to it, it's exactly where I need it to be. So I'm going to ignore that little short tail. I'm going to find the next stitch, this guy right here, and I'm going to single crochet. Actually, I might work over that short tail too. Right into that stitch using the skin tone color only. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Ignore that you have 3. It's okay, they're supposed to be there, but you're just going to single crochet. So you're pulling your hook back through everything. Tighten up that white or hair color just so that you don't have a giant loopy space there. And that is the first stitch of the face. We're going to single crochet into each of the next 7 stitches. So you'll have 8 skin tone stitches in total. I'm working over top of that short tail. You don't have to, but I am working over top of my carried color, so it's going to be right where I need it to be when I am ready to use it again. So that's 8 single crochet in the new skin tone, and you can count them up: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Make sure you've got 8 of them. You can drop the skin tone color, pick up your hair color again, and you're going to single crochet into each of the next 6 stitches. That's how many stitches are left in this row. So you want to tighten up that skin color, single crochet into each of the next 6 stitches, and that is the end of row 14. You still have 21 stitches, and we've started our little face. Row 15 is an increase row, so we have 3 increases to do, and we're also continuing to switch colors right about where the line is between the hair and the skin stitches. So here we go. We're going to count them out. We're going to start with 2 single crochet into the first stitch with our hair color. We're going to single crochet into each of the next 6 stitches. And that brings us up to the change in color. So into this next stitch, it also happens to be an increase. We are going to work 1 single crochet with our hair color. Drop the hair color, prepare to carry it, pick up your skin tone, which will be all the way back here, lay it against the edge of the inside of your little amigurumi. So just lay it there. I like to kind of just hold it there. Don't worry about it being too tight or too loose right now. We're going to fix that in a second. Into that same place where we just worked the white stitch, you are going to single crochet with the skin tone. So 2 single crochet in the same stitch, it's just that they're each a different color. Now you're going to gently tug on the hair color to tighten up that loop, and you're going to make sure that this isn't too taut in here. So if you have to, you can just sort of pull back on it a little bit. You want it to be able to lay comfortably against the inside edge of your toy. Now we are going to work over top of our white or our hair color because we're going to carry it, and I'm also going to work over top of that little tail at the back. If you don't catch the little tail inside with every stitch, it doesn't matter. I just feel that it kind of keeps things neat and tidy. So carrying the white, working with our skin tone, we are going to single crochet into each of the next 6 stitches. Into the next stitch, we have an increase to do, and we're going to do what we did over here, but in reverse. So we're going to single crochet into the next stitch with our skin tone, drop the skin tone, pick up our white, which we've carried, so it's right where we need it to be, single crochet into the same stitch, tug on that skin tone just to tighten up that loop so it's nice and neat. Not too tight though, you still need to be able to work into it. And we continue. So that's 2 single crochet into that stitch. We're going to single crochet into each of the next 6 stitches. And that is row 15 complete. You have 24 stitches now, and you still have a little color definition happening where his face and his hair meet. For row 16, we do not have any increases, so we're going to stick to the 24 stitch count, but we do have color changes. We've got 2, right here and right here, and that's the last row that we do any color changing on. So here we go, let's count it out together. With our hair color, we are going to single crochet into the first 9 stitches of the row. So 1 single crochet in each of the first 9 stitches. That brings us up to the line between the hair and the skin tone. We're going to drop our white, we're going to carry it, we're going to pick up the skin tone, do what we did the last time, just sort of lay it across the inside edge of the face. Make a single crochet in the next stitch because we're not doing any increasing. So just single crochet in the next stitch but using the skin tone. Pause, tighten up the white, so that you don't have a great big gappy thing there. Pause and look at the inside, make sure that that's not too taut, pull it out a little bit so that it can lay comfortably against the inside of your face. Then you're going to continue to single crochet in each of the next 7 stitches with the skin tone, and I'm working over top of my little tail or my little yarn on the inside, and I'm also carrying the white yarn. So single crochet into each of the next 7 stitches using skin tone. That brings you up to the edge where the skin tone and the hair meet again. Drop your skin tone color, pick up your hair color again, and you're going to single crochet into each of the next 6 stitches to finish the row. So single crochet into the first stitch, tighten up on that. Sorry, I mean 7 stitches. There are 7 stitches to finish the row. So that's the first stitch, pause, tighten up on the skin tone, and then you can continue into the next 6 stitches with your hair color. So count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 1 more to go. So you should have 9 hair color, 8 skin color, 7 hair color again for the end of row 16. You still have 24 stitches all the way around. You can pause, snip your skin tone color. I'm going to pull up on my working loop. That's it for the face. So if you've got a slippery yarn, you might want to grab your yarn needle and make a little knot. Wow, come here you. Make a little knot somehow on the inside of your face. This is just so it doesn't want to unravel. But if it's not terribly slippery or you've got nice tight stitch work, you can also weave it in On the inside, this also helps keep it from unraveling. So you go all the way through the stitches of the face on the inside of the toy, going one way, and then you double back by skipping over top of a loop, going back through the same set of stitches, going the other way. And if you have any left, you can do it again, or you can trim what's left. I'm just going to leave it to the inside. I know that's not going to come undone. For row 17, we've got one more row of white, and it is an increase row. So here we go. We're going to go from 24 stitches at the end of row 16 to 27 stitches at the end of row 17. We're only using white, no more color changes here. Let's go. 2 single crochet into the first stitch, followed by a single crochet in each of the next 7 stitches. So count them out. So that's the first set. For a repeat, we want to do that twice more. 2 single crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into each of the next 7 stitches, and then you'll repeat that once more. At the end of row 17, you'll have 27 stitches. You'll have increased 3 times, so every little increase row has 3 increases to it, and you've got a solid row of hair color all the way around the bottom of his face. We are going to finish off row 17 by single crocheting into each of the next 4 stitches. This does not change the stitch count, but it does even up the bottom of our little gnome and the color changes so that they're all roughly in the same place. You can slip stitch into the next stitch, fasten off, again, you don't have to worry about weaving in a tail. You can just sort of push it to the inside, or you can work over top of it. And now you want to grab your tunic color. I'm going back to red because I'm making Santa. For row 18, we are switching back to our tunic color, or if you're changing it completely, like if you're making a little gnome, you're changing to your tunic color, whatever it is. We're going to begin with a slip knot on our hook. We're going to join with a single crochet in the same place that we fastened off. So if you lift up on that little tail, you'll see the little hole underneath it, right where that knot is. Join with a single crochet. We are not increasing in this row, so all we need to do is single crochet in every single stitch all the way around. We will still have 27 stitches at the end of the row. At the end of row 18, you still have 27 stitches. It's pretty clear when you get back around to that first stitch. We are not joining with a slip stitch. We are going to continue in the round. We have one more row of increasing to do. So row 19 is an increase row. We are going to go from 27 stitches at the end of row 18 to 30 stitches in row 19. So here we go. 2 single crochet to begin row 19 in the first stitch. Single crochet into each of the next 8 stitches. And we start again. 2 single crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into each of the next 8, repeat that once more, and that is row 19. At the end of row 19, we have 30 stitches. For rows 20, 21, 22, and 23, so the next 4 rows, you are going to single crochet in every stitch all the way around. So you will have 30 stitches per row for the next 4 rows, and that will be the main build of the body of our gnome complete. So just single crochet in each stitch all the way around for 4 more rows. At the end of row 23, you will finish a couple stitches back from the color change. That's because when you're working in the round, every row that you increase, you kind of sets you back a stitch. It's a funny little thing to do with the math. We are going to single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches just to even that up. and slip stitch into the next stitch to finish. And if you want to quickly count, this was row 18 where we changed color, so 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So that's 23 rows. You can fasten off. You don't need to weave in this tail, you can just let it hang. It either gets tossed into the inside or you can work over top of it later. That is the main build of our little gnome. Now we're just going to make his bottom piece. So you're going to continue with the same color that you made his tunic out of. We're going to begin with another slip knot, or I should say another cinch circle. So cinch circle to begin, make a little cinch circle, chain 1 to secure it. We're going to work 5 single crochet into that circle over top of that short tail to begin. Once you have 5 single crochet worked into your cinch circle, grab that little short tail and cinch it up nice and tight. That is the end of row 1. We are not joining with slip stitches. We are going to continue in the round, and we are going to do 6 rows in total of increasing for the little bottom piece. You can leave your tail to the back if you want. You can work over top of it. It's up to you. So 5 single crochet at the end of row 1, working directly into what was the first stitch of row 1. We are going to work 2 single crochet into that stitch to begin row 2. We are doubling our stitch count from 5 to 10. So in each stitch around, you're going to work 2 single crochet. So 2 single crochet into each of those 5 stitches from row 1. And at the end of row 2, we'll be up to 10 single crochet. At the end of row 2, you'll have 10 single crochet. For row 3, we are increasing. The stitch count will go from 10 until 15. And we are going to work 2 single crochet into the first stitch, 1 single crochet in the next stitch. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. So 2, 1, 2 single crochet followed by 1 single crochet, 5 times total, and that will bring us from 10 to 15 stitches. At the end of row 3, you'll have 15 stitches. For row 4, we're continuing to increase. We are now going to work 2 single crochet into the first stitch of the set, followed by a single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. So 2, 1, 1. You're going to repeat that little increase pattern 5 times in total, and we'll go from 15 to 20 stitches at the end of row 4. At the end of row 4, we have 20 stitches. In row 5, we're going to continue to increase. We're going to go from 20 to 25 stitches. So the new increase pattern is 2 single crochet worked into the first stitch, followed by a single crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. You're going to repeat that 5 times in total. That'll give you 25 stitches. And if you find that you're getting a little bit of a hat shape or a bowl shape going here, don't worry about it. We will take care of that at the end. At the end of row 5, we've got 25 stitches, maybe a little bit of a bowl shape happening, perfectly fine. That just means you have a nice tight bottom that none of your stuffing is going to come through. One more row of increasing. Row 6, we're going to begin with 2 single crochet in the first stitch, single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches, and you're going to repeat that 5 times in total, and we'll go from 25 to 30 stitches at the end of row 6. At the end of row 6, we have 30 stitches. We do not need to even up the circle. We're just going to leave it the way it is. So we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch. And you're going to leave a nice long tail for sewing, because this is how we're going to attach the bottom of our gnome toy to our actual gnome. So slip stitch, fasten off, long tail, that's for sewing. We will take care of that much later. And you can just gently pull out a little bit on your bowl-shaped thing, lay it flat, use the heat of your hand to flatten it a bit, and if you still have a little bit of a bump, that's perfectly okay, because the bottom of your toy can sit inverted a little bit like that. This is going to be the outside, this is going to be the inside. and all that little stuffing will help kind of keep it in place. So don't worry too much about the shape of the bottom. What you want is 30 stitches and a somewhat round shape. The next thing we're going to make is his little mustache and beard applique, and this piece is made all in one go. So we're going to take our hair color, we're going to make a slip knot, and we're going to chain 10 to begin. Once you have 10 chains, find the first one, join with a slip stitch, and we'll have a nice chained ring. Now we're going to build the mustache across the top, the beard across the bottom. I want you to think of this little sort of bit of white hair encircling his mouth. Here's his little mouth here. Mustache at the top, beard across the bottom. Here we go. Chain 3. Skip the first chain from the hook, slip stitch into the second chain, slip stitch into the third chain, and that is one little side of his mustache made. We're going to slip stitch into each of the next 4 chains across the ring. And now we're going to repeat this out the other side. Chain 3. Skip the first chain from the hook, slip stitch into the second chain, slip stitch into the third chain, and that's his little mustache made. We're going to begin the beard, so this is sort of the first part of the beard worked across the bottom. We're going to slip stitch into the next chain along the ring, and that leaves us with 4 chains. We're going to single crochet into each of them. So single crochet into each of the next 4 chains. That brings us right back to the beginning, and you're going to join with a slip stitch by either slipping your hook through the same place where your knot is into the bottom of the beginning of his mustache, somewhere in that area. It's not terribly important where. You just want to kind of close off the circle. So we've got our little mustache, this is where his mouth is, and the beard has started down here. Chain 2, turn into the same place that you chained out of. You're going to double crochet. If we can get it, come on, there we go. We're going to double crochet twice into each of the next 3 stitches, so 2 double crochet in each of the next 3 stitches. Nice full beard here. And then to finish off his beard in that last little single crochet down here, we're going to double crochet into it once, and it's going to be kind of tight, so slip your hook in there. Double crochet, chain 2, and slip stitch into the same place. So that kind of is the reverse of what started it. So now you've got this nice full beard all the way across. This is his little mouth in here, and he's got his mustache. Leave yourself a nice long tail for sewing. Fasten off. Grab your yarn needle. You're going to weave in that little short tail across the back of the beard. You can decide which side you like best. I like this side here where it looks like his beard is kind of bushing out a little bit. So I'm going to weave the tail in on the opposite side. This will be the inside edge of my beard and mustache. The last little thing we want to crochet for him is his belt. So we're going to take our black or our dark yarn, we're going to make a slip knot, and we're going to chain 31. You don't want to chain these too tightly. So if you tend to chain tightly, then either try to relax your tension or grab a larger hook. A size 5mm or an H8 would be fine. That's enough of a larger hook that I think you can get a decent 31 chain belt. 31 chains will reach all the way around our little gnome.
Once you have 31 chains, leave yourself a nice long tail for sewing. 12 inches or 30 centimeters should probably be enough. And pull that nice and tight. That is his little belt. That's all there is to that. Next, we're going to sew his little beard on. This, I just love this part because it starts to really look like a little character. I've flattened him just so I can get a nice visual of where I want his little beard and mustache to go. I'm going to try and use the bottom row of the face to kind of have that in the middle of his mouth, and I want his mustache to kind of run along the bottom edge or a little bit of the middle of his face. I'm going to put his eyes on that middle row of the face. So that's where I'm going to try and position it. Now if you need to pin it into place, you can do that with some safety pins or some straight sewing pins. I like to just hold it in place and start sewing and double check what I'm doing as I go. So I kind of hold it down. I've threaded up my tail with my yarn needle, and I'm going to just, I've got my fingers inside here so that I don't accidentally sew all the way through, and I've got a nice grip on it. I'm just going to grab the little loop that sits on the actual Santa just below the edge of his beard, and then I'm going to grab a piece of the beard. We've used this technique many times here on the show. Grab a piece of a loop, the edge stitch, and if you use the loops that sit just below where your applique sits, those stitches are almost invisible. So I like to grab one little loop, and then through the edge. Didn't quite get all of that stitch, so let me just get underneath it. There we go. Then I pause, make sure it hasn't moved. Still looks good. And then I continue. So I'm looking for the loop underneath the next stitch. And I'm trying not to like pull anything out of alignment. I'm not sewing too tightly. And I'm just going to continue that all the way around his little mustache. When I get up to here, I'm going to sort of try and make sure that I don't, I can sort of shape where I want his mustache to go. Alright, I've worked all the way around the edge of the beard, and now I'm up to the mustache, and I just want to kind of place the mustache where I want it. I think I like this little kind of turned up thing. And I've kind of poofed out the inside of my Santa so I don't accidentally grab anything on the other side. And I'm just going to continue this little habit of grabbing a piece of a loop of a stitch, one little bit, and then grabbing the edge of the mustache. And you don't have to do every single stitch along the mustache. You just kind of want to make sure that it's tacked down and it's not going to go anywhere. And I find maybe three stitches along the mustache is probably enough. Then I'm going to go up and over top of his mustache. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to make sure that I've got my little mustache where I want it, and I'm going to sew it down as well. Once you've sewn all the way around, you're going to go bring your yarn down back through to the inside, and this is optional. You can bring it back out and sew around the inside of the mouth. This is especially helpful if you've got sort of some loose looking chains, or you just kind of want to shape it a little more. And you can just bring your yarn needle back out, and I like to just pop over top of that little slightly loose looking chain, come out again right next to the next one, and this is basically just tacking some chains down. Like I said, it's optional, but it does help kind of neaten up that mouth area. And once you're done with that, you can either do the top. I'm not going to bother, I just wanted to sort of do the bottom there. Just leave your tail out, because we're going to knot it with another tail in a little while. And that is the beard and mustache on. We're going to put on his eyes next, and for this you're going to want your needle and thread. I've doubled up my thread, meaning I cut a long piece, put it through the needle, brought the ends together and knotted them at the bottom so that I've got sort of double the length of, or double the width or thickness of thread. And we're going to anchor it on the inside. So just sort of slightly turn your little toy inside out. Pick a loop in the middle row of the face to just run your needle underneath. And then I like to split that doubled up thread with my needle, and then just run my yarn under it a second time. Maybe make a little knot. This way I know my little eyes aren't going to come out. Then I'm going to straighten them out so I'm looking at them all neat and tidy. And I'm going to decide where about I want my eyes. And I want them both to sit pretty close together because I think that gives them a cute, funny little look. So I'm going to put them on either side of that little bump in his mustache. I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to bring it out. It's hard to see, but I'm going to bring it out. You can see that little bit of the needle there sticking out, right where I want the side of my first eye to sit. Thread up the bead. Decide where I want the eye to finish, which is kind of close to the middle of his mustache. And then I'm just going to pass my needle through to the other side where I want the other eye to sit. And if the first couple of stitches you don't like the sort of positioning of your eyes, you can kind of jiggle them around while you're putting in extra stitches to sort of make them sit more where you want to. So this first pair of sort of just getting them on kind of gets them in the right place. I bring my needle back through where I want the other side of the eye to sit, and then back out next to the inside of my first eye, and I'm going to sew back and forth through them a few times, 3 or 4 times, just to make sure that they are not going anywhere. So I run my needle through the other bead, down next to it, bring it back out on the inside of the second eye, through that eye, and then back again, down and back out through to the inside of the next eye, through the eye, and so on. It's kind of like doing a figure 8 through your eyes and through the stitches of the doll fabric. And I'm going to do this 3 or 4 times just to make sure that they're on there and they're not going anywhere. Once you've got your eyes pretty firmly sewn down, you're going to take your needle and thread and you're going to put it back through to the inside of your toy. Be careful not to poke yourself. Needles can be pretty pokey. Then you're just going to slightly turn your toy inside out again, and you're going to knot that thread. I'm going to do it underneath. I'm sort of just grabbing a loop of a stitch, and I'm going to knot it 2 or 3 times just to make sure that it doesn't want to come undone. And that's good. And that is the eyes sewn on. You can trim that thread, put that needle somewhere safe so that you don't step on it. That's the eyes, and let's do his mouth next. I flatten him out again just so I can get a good look at his mouth. I've cut a length of red yarn, it's about 30 centimeters, 12 inches, threaded up my needle, and I'm just going to do a couple of whip stitches on the inside of his mouth. So you take your needle with your red yarn or pink yarn, whatever color you want to do his mouth, bring it through from the inside of the doll, out at the very edge, either corner, doesn't matter. Pull your yarn, but leave enough inside that you can knot the ends together. I like to put my finger right on that. And then you're just going to whip stitch a straight stitch. So 2 straight stitches to the opposite side of his mouth. If it's easier for you to just bring it right back out, don't pull too tightly. And then repeat. Come back in the same place that you started. Back out the same place. And if you think he needs a little bit more, no, I think 2 is enough for me. If you're using a slightly thinner yarn, you can do 3 or 4, however many you need to get sort of a nice little mouth shape and color going. I think 2 is good for me. Then I just take my needle off my yarn, grab those 2 ends on the inside and knot them together, being careful not to pull too tightly that I end up pulling the stitches out of alignment. I don't want to pinch his little mouth together. So I just kind of grab the knot from underneath and pull it tightly. And then I'm going to take that beard yarn and I'm going to tie it with one of these red yarns, just so I know that my beard yarn isn't going to untangle. And this can be a complete disastrous mess on the inside of your toy. It does not matter because it's not going to show. You don't have to trim any of these threads. You don't have to weave any of them in. Just tuck them inside because it's all going to contribute to stuffing. And there's his mouth. All we need to do now is put on his belt and his belt buckle. The belt begins somewhere around the middle back on the 21st row. That's 3 rows up from the bottom. If you want to pin it into place, then you can do that. What we're going to do is basically sew the belt along that 21st row. It'll run pretty much underneath the chin or the beard of your Santa. You're going to keep it on that 3rd row from the bottom, and it's going to come back, and these 2 ends are going to meet in the same place. Now, if you have tight tension and your 31 chains don't quite meet, you might want to tug gently, stretch the chained belt as you sew. Or you might want to pin it into place. So I've threaded up the long tail left on my belt. I'm going to make sure that it's lying chain side up. I'm going to put that first chain along the 21st row, pretty much in alignment with the bottom tail. And I'm going to just poke my needle right through to the inside to just sort of start. There we go. So I'm looking for that, I'm keeping it on the 3rd row up from the bottom, and we're just going to use a running stitch. So I'm going to bring my needle right up through that 21st row, right through the belt, and I'm going to slightly tug on my belt as I go. I'm going to jump over a little bit of the stitch. You can go right back through the fabric if you find that easy. Reposition it and come back out in the next chain. You don't have to do every chain. You can do every other chain if you want, but you do want to try and keep it along that 21st row. When you get back around to the beginning, so there's your tail, you're going to bring your running yarn through the same hole that you started in, and that's just going to join things up nicely. You can pull that out. Then you're going to take your little tail that's left on your original slip knot, and you're just going to bring it down to the inside through a stitch just beside the one where your other yarn is. So you can sort of see that they're separated. Then you're going to knot the 2 ends together. No trimming, no weaving required, just knot them so you know they're not going to come undone. There we go. Stuff it inside. That's his little belt on, and now all he needs is his buckle. So let's grab our yellow yarn and we'll get that going. Thread your yellow yarn up in your yarn needle. We're going to work a series of whip stitches over top and underneath and along over the sort of the sides of his belt. So what you want to do is kind of identify the middle 3 or the middle 2 stitches somewhere in the, however big you want your belt buckle to be. And you can start in the bottom right corner, bottom left, doesn't matter. Maybe I'm going to go over one more. So this is the bottom corner of the belt. Pull your yarn from the inside of the doll to the outside, leave a little tail for knotting the ends together, and you're just going to hop over top of his belt buckle, bring yarn back through, come back out through the same place, and you're going to do that twice. If you've got thinner yarn than me, you can do this 3 times. Then, to mark off the middle of the belt, I'm going to jump over to the other side. So that looks good to me. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Sort of hop over top, trying to keep them relatively up and down straight. Do it through the same 2 places twice. Here we go. So that's either side of his belt. And now we're going to do 2 stitches across the top and 2 stitches across the bottom to join them up. So same place, bring it out. Oh, wait, nope. We want to do the bottom first. Don't want to undo it. Let's do the bottom first. So out at the bottom. This way it won't undo on us. And through to the other side. So you're connecting the 4 corners basically. And then through those 2 places twice. And then we'll do the top. 2 whip stitches through those 2 places. Easy peasy. Now, if you feel like it's not thick enough, you want to add a little bit more, you're more than welcome to. I like 2 whip stitches or 2 straight stitches in both places. Then I just grab those 2 tails, knot them together on the inside. Not too tight. Don't want to tug on those nice straight stitches. But I make the knot nice and tight by pulling on the top and the bottom of it. No trimming, no weaving required, just tuck it to the inside. And that is all of it. His eyes, his beard, his mouth, his belt buckle. And now all we want to do is stuff it. So grab your stuffing, whatever it is you're using for stuffing, and let's get that done too. I'm using some leftover yarn that I haven't got a project in mind for. And because our little guy doesn't require a lot of stuffing, it's not going to take much. So I'm going to start with a little bit of stuffing, and whatever you're using, just a little bit to begin with. I'm going to sort of lightly pack it down into the hat. I want to leave the top of the hat empty so that I can kind of bend it, because I like that kind of quirky little look that it gives him with a slightly bent little hat. So I'm just going to tuck, and don't forget you can use some of the inside strings that you've got dangling. Just tuck all that nice and somewhat snugly into the top of his hat. And then I'm just going to continue adding little bits of stuffing, tucking it down, just sort of tapping it in with the bottom of my hook as I go. And I'm going to do this so that it's nice and even all the way around on the inside of this somewhat triangular shape. And I'm going to keep adding stuffing until it basically comes up to the flush with the bottom edge of the toy. Once you've got enough stuffing in your little toy that it basically sits flush when tapped down with the bottom edge, you can tuck in that little tail, it's time to sew on the bottom. So you want to grab the bottom, you want to thread up that long tail in your yarn needle. I like the I like this to be the inside and this to be the outside, but it's up to you, whichever side you like the best. You're going to take the part where the yarn ended and line it up at the same place. This is the back basically of our little toy. And you're going to start by pulling that working yarn through the same place where you knotted off. I just like to do that. And then because we have the same number of stitches all the way around, I'm going to keep that tucked in. you're going to match up each set of stitches and just whip stitch. So whip stitching is you're sewing around, always going in the same direction. Find the next set of stitches and the next set of stitches and the next set of stitches. So you're always going around in the same direction, and you're just going to work through all 30 sets of stitches all the way around, and keep that stuffing tucked down while you're working. Once you've sewn all the way around, I like to go through that first set of stitches once more, just to kind of make sure that everything's in there nice and tight. And you can do one of two things. You can make a little tiny knot over here, or if you've got a lot of tail left over like I do, you can start weaving it in back and forth through some of these stitches. This is especially useful if you're using kind of an acrylic or a wool that's kind of grabby yarn. If you're using slippery wool, then you're definitely going to want to knot it first. Weave it back and forth a couple times until you're fairly certain it's not going to work its way out. And if you have any yarn left over, you can just pull it into the inside of the toy or trim it off. Once you've got all of your tails woven in, everything's put together, you can just sort of tuck that little bottom bit up into the doll. I like this because it kind of gives them a nice flat, round, solid, sturdy bottom to sit on. And you can tweak. You can kind of pinch his little hat down, maybe curl up his little moustache, sort of fiddle with his belt, anything you like. And there we go. We've got a little gnome, I've got Santa, I've got my little elf, and I've got Merlin.
So, whether you make yourself a new little lawn gnome or perhaps Santa and his elves, we hope you enjoyed making our little gnome pattern along with us. And if you'd like to help support our show, please consider popping into our Etsy shop and picking up a pattern, including today's pattern, which we've refreshed to include photos of all of our little gnomes and some other detailed information like how to add little stars and different belt options to your gnome to turn him into different characters. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you soon here on the Jayda and Stitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have a great week. Bye, everybody.
Hi, everybody. Mr. InStitches here. Thank you for watching today. Here are some of our other videos you might be interested in. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.